Oh, there we go. We're live, everybody. Hello, everybody.
We made it.
We all made it. So I'm going to just pause for a couple minutes here there's a little lag in YouTube Live sometimes, so allow for that lag. But hello, everybody. We are live with the fabulous Jerry Wise today. Super excited. And I want to remind everyone there is a chat box to the right of this video. So on the video page where you're watching, there's a chat box to your right. So if you have questions, comments, whatever during this awesome Q&A we're going to do with Jerry, just please type those in and share with us. So let's see, I'm going to also be watching your comments to the right of me at my other computer to watch what's going on. We've got Rose. Hi, Andy and Jerry. Hi, Rose. We've got live in peace, Grace. Hello. It's awesome to have you guys here. All right, well, let's get started. It's 1 minute after. So thank you so much for joining us and welcome to our live Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal class series. I am Ande Anderson, co-founder of Avaiya Media and Enlightenment Village with my partner, Ike Allen. Thanks so much for joining us. And as most of you probably know, but not all of you, this live class today was inspired by Avaiya's Breaking Free from Abandonment and Betrayal online event, where we had the opportunity to talk with a really large group of therapists, with doctors, with authors, with people like Jerry Wise, with relationship experts and more. And they shared lots of great tools and strategies to help you let go of your experiences of abandonment, past betrayals, to help you live a really powerful, peaceful life and enjoy great, healthy, happy relationships. So we have, as I've mentioned a couple times, a very special guest back with us today, which is one of our featured speakers from the event. So please, everyone, just welcome back therapist, codependency expert, and author Jerry Wise. Hello, Jerry.
Hey, thank you very much. It's wonderful to join you and talk again.
I had such a great time with you the first time, Jerry. I've listened to your interview on reducing self-abandonment many times since then. I'm a big believer in having my earbuds in. And
you didn't fall asleep or get bored or?
Never.
That's great.
I also appreciate your sense of humor and lightness as we talk about oftentimes challenging subjects. So
challenging subjects, right?
Yes, one thing I love about you. So Jerry, let's dive in. I'm just going to check comments real quick. Awesome. We got some other people hopping on. Excellent. So we have a bunch of questions and breakthrough stories that people submitted via email for us and for you, Jerry. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into those. They were either via email or our Facebook community. So everyone watching live, please share your breakthroughs and ask any questions you have for Jerry in that chat box to the right of this video. And I'm going to go ahead and just address those throughout the class. So if I haven't gotten to it, believe me, I will pay attention and look over at comments. If you have any questions for Jerry, we will get to those as we go forward. So the first one I want to dive into is from Rose. So Jerry, Rose has an amazing, awesome testimonial of you.
Uh-oh. Oh my gosh.
She does. She had said
something. I want to live up to something, and I don't like that.
She has amazing things to say about you. So I'm gonna read what she had to say first, and then I'm gonna take a few questions that I and some other people have around her breakthrough story. So she said that she's been actually working with you and following your work for 5 years, and she's had the privilege of having 2 sessions via Skype with Jerry a few years ago, which was priceless. And a particular breakthrough was learning to go without love and approval, which was not easy, but freeing. And developing an emotional backbone and learning about enmeshment, family systems, and owning my own role was perhaps the biggest challenge, and again, painful, but freeing. Seeing through family illusions, rules, roles, self-differentiation, guilt, and shame was a significant breakthrough too. And learning to say no without feeling guilty. Jerry's YouTube channel has kept me standing, literally. So everyone, if you have not checked out his channel, I highly, highly recommend that, obviously, especially from this testament of Rose. So his wisdom and expertise is second to none. I have spent so many hours listening and learning from Jerry. I am still a work in progress, as we all are. And Jerry once also said, when the mind falls silent and the questions stop, we have heard the truth. So there's a Jerryism for you. And I have had many moments of experiencing this over the past 5 years. I would like to say thank you to Jerry. So First of all, let's just,
Kind.
accept that amazing testimonial, Jerry.
Oh, very much. Kind words.
Awesome. So I have a couple of questions kind of based on what Rose shared, kind of anticipating what some other people might be wondering based on that breakthrough. So one thing that Rose said was the importance of owning your own role in our lives. I think this is so important, and it brings us so much power and empowerment when we can do such a thing. So I would love it if you dive a little bit into that, Jerry. Like, why is it important for us to own our own role in our lives, and how can that tie into people who have abandonment struggles?
And it is very critical, because if you see the world in a linear way, point A to point B, and it's linear, I do this, you do that, you do this, I feel or do that, or I respond or react in some way. That's one way of looking at relationships and looking at the world, but oftentimes we will not see our role in it. If you look at the world in a loop way, or what I consider a systems way, where I interact with that person interacts with me, which then interacts with me, which then I interact with them, and we have this loop going on in terms of relationship, then I can start to look at what's my part of the loop. Not you're just causing me a problem. You're the problem. Well, how do I interact with the problem? And in fact, every time I talk with someone, and let's say they come and complain, and they'll say, well, my wife is just hypercritical, or my husband is just hypercritical, and he just cannot, I just never feel like I can do anything right. And so when you have that kind of understanding of a loop, then I always want to look at, I know you're sharing this with me in a paradigm or a context in which you believe your husband is the problem. Now, is your husband behaving in a good way? No, I'm not excusing anybody's behavior. That's not a good way to react to other people in a hypercritical, or, you can't do anything right way. But how are you interacting with the problem? Mm-hmm. And if someone can identify their role in it, meaning, here's a good example. I just talked with someone today, and the husband tells the wife something, or says it in a certain way. The wife doesn't understand what he means, and it's maybe kind of gruff. He's kind of a gruff kind of guy or whatever, but he's not really a bad person. And the wife comes from a narcissistic family, pretty sensitive, to criticism, because that's what she got all of her life growing up. She's working on that sensitivity. So the husband's giving her that, and she goes, well, honey, I'm not sure. Can you say that in a different way? I'm not sure I know exactly what you mean. And then he starts to escalate and get upset. Well, do you think I'm just stupid? I mean, I just told you what I meant to say, and why don't you understand that? Then she feels, now we have this loop going of, he's telling himself his story, she's telling herself her story. Maybe I am stupid. Maybe he did say it in the right way and I just can't get it. Why am I always bad? And then she goes, I just didn't understand what you said. Can you say it in a different way? Oh, you think I'm stupid and can't communicate what she never said that, but that's his story going on inside of him. And so now we have both of those stories going on. If you can identify your story, you can change the whole story. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to change their stories, but you can change how this story works. This one that's going like this. Now, they still may want to hold on to their story, but we have to work on our stories. I think even recently, Brene Brown in her Netflix video came out with Call to Courage, which was excellent. And she talks about the story between her and her husband, and how she was telling herself her story, he was telling himself his story, and they just kept banging. And so if we can identify our role in the system, family of origin, our marriage, relationships with friends and others, co-workers, if we can identify our role in the system and take responsibility for it, we can change our role in the system. And so that's why it's so important to do that, rather than, well, my husband just is so critical of me. Oh, well, okay, we better just bring him in here and hit him with a whip and make him stop doing that. It's just, I'm not sure how far we're going to get with that.
Right.
But if you can stop telling yourself the story that if he gets flustered, or if he feels ashamed, or if he has low self-esteem, you're not doing anything wrong. But you don't believe that because you grew up in a narcissistic home, and everything you did was wrong. So if you can heal part of that, you're going to interact with your husband differently. And so he can still be who he is, and you're going to interact differently, and thus begin to change the system with a non-anxious presence, calm, and being adult. You're not just going to react out of your inner child. Well, why are you always criticizing me? Why can't you just tell me what you meant? Why can't you say it in a different way? All that's just our inner childhood stuff.
Awesome. Thank you.
The question.
Yes, thank you. I'm pulling another, I'm now calling them Jerryisms. I hope you don't mind. But another Jerryism was like that if we change our story, or if you change your story, you change the whole story.
You really do.
That's great, right? Like, and each of us is responsible for change our own story, right? To tell ourselves a different story, to be aware of the stories we're telling ourselves. But when we change it for ourselves, we are changing the whole story. I love that.
And the healing, powerful thing about Bowen family systems theory is that was one of the theories that if you stay connected in the loop and change your story, or self-differentiate, another way of changing your story, self-differentiate and have more calmness, that is going to be absorbed by the system. It can't help but be absorbed by the system because you're in connection with it. So many people say, oh, well, it won't change them. Well, let's take a look. Because I know when I was able to operate in that way with my own family, things changed for me. Actually, things changed for the family. Now, did that mean my family, who was crazy, as I was crazy too, became not crazy anymore? No, but it changes the tone. It changes there are many subtle things that happen. If you can approach it with more calmness and more adulthood and change your story, their stories and the way they did it don't stand up as well. They won't be able to stand up as easily. And that's what we want.
Awesome. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you so much, Sherry. I appreciate that. And again, Rose, thank you for sharing your breakthrough and your experience with working with Jerry and following his work. And I appreciate that answer to that question. So we've got another one here, Jerry. This is someone who emailed in, and this is from Gwen, who's asking, or first of all, the breakthrough story I would like to share is just a mindset that Jerry made clear. Self-differentiation is key to not feeling manipulated by a narcissist in your circle. One can even stay married to a narcissist as long as you have boundaries and self-differentiation. So Gwen's question is, where does one draw the line in a marriage to a narcissist? There are times when living with my spouse where I can't take another minute of the rages and infantile behavior. And my teen daughter even says, Mom, you have got to leave, as she sees the behavior and I start researching attorneys. But then there are the better times, the more normal times, and the marriage functions in a practical way despite a lack of intimacy. Life is good and I hate to lose what I have, but I know he will act out again at a future date. So how do I work out a decision?
And that is a common question. There are many people, and it doesn't just have to be a narcissist spouse. There are many people that have come to me and, how will I know, or Jerry, should I leave? That's a very good question. Should I divorce this person? And of course, I always defer from that question going, I don't know, I'm not married to them. How would I know whether you should divorce them or not? I mean, I have my own beliefs or thoughts about divorce. I know that divorce doesn't fix everything. I think that's, as from my marriage and family therapy background, I know it doesn't, it's divorce doesn't equal self-differentiation. I wish it did. And a lot of people do it for that purpose, and then they find out they're still not self-differentiated. They're not whole. Now, that doesn't mean divorce may not be an appropriate response to a very toxic or damaging marriage. So I think when someone asks me that kind of question, where do you draw the line? What should I do? I think you have to weigh out. And I think this is where Marjalis Fjellsted, right here. Marjalis Fjellstad, F-J-E-L-S-T-A-D, if you want the spelling. Stop caretaking the borderline or narcissist, how to end the drama and get on with your life. She's a great marriage and family therapist who is married to a narcissist, and she goes through the struggle of, should I stay or should I go? And she comes at it in a very human, sensitive, and empathetic way. And I would recommend that book to read. What should I do? Because you have to weigh out, what are the positives, what are the negatives. Now, some people will be black and white and say, well, if you have a narcissistic husband, you need to just go no contact, get out and let him go. Well, that's if you don't hold to the view that narcissism is on a continuum. And many people believe you just are one or you're not. And they do think of it as all narcissists are malignant narcissists. And if you're not that, then you're not a narcissist. Well, no. What if we have someone with narcissistic traits? What if we have someone whose personality is not as severe as a malignant narcissist? Then we have to weigh out, what are the positives? What are the minuses? What can I accept? Can I have a life with this person and a life of my own? Does the good outweigh the bad? Am I being abused physically? Because, we can ignore a lot of stuff. I have to ignore things every day. Somebody might say, Jerry, you're the worst life relationship coach in the world. Okay. I guess that's your opinion. I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe I am. But take what you can use and leave the rest. That's the AA model for, take what you can use. If I'm not speaking to you, don't watch me. People you can go and watch and learn from.
Right.
And so I think we can become more neutral rather than just being so hurt all the time. And I think that working through the positives versus the negatives, and then if you have children involved and financial things involved, it's not just an easy thing of going, oh, I'm just leaving and that solves the problem. Well, you're pretty pretzeled together in your life, and you have to untangle that. So again, I don't have an ideal answer, because I don't know that there's an ideal answer. I think it would be good for you to talk to someone, Gwen, and sort out, are there ways you can make the relationship better for you and for your teenage daughter, I think, or child that you had? Or are there ways in which you should begin to make your way out of the relationship? That's, and that may take some time. I know I've worked with people that took 2 and 3 years before they could get away, because they're so entwined. The husband was so controlling that they just couldn't up and go. It would destroy their whole lives. So they have to, work at moving their way out. And in this particular case, there wasn't physical violence. So, there was threats of it, but it didn't happen. And so, but it was just awful in other ways. And so we sometimes have to work through something to grow and to move out. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's the best information I have.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that. And thank you, Gwen, for asking the question. And I hope that was helpful. And anyone else who's in the same scenario, which I'm imagining someone else listening right now is also in a similar scenario. So hopefully that was helpful to you too. I'm going to get a question here from our live feed. So here's a question for you, Jerry. What are good ways to heal from a narc family so we do not stay in our story? I am 5 years recovery, ACA, Al-Anon, therapy, etc. I still have buttons and vulnerabilities and wounds. So her or his question is, what are good ways to heal from a narc family so we do not stay in our story?
And I think that's an excellent question. I just did a live broadcast about healing from narcissistic abuse through self-differentiation. And you can find that on my website, on my YouTube channel. And I believe when you say, how do I heal from those things? We heal through grief work and letting go of illusions. That's one of the ways that we heal. In other words, our family is not going to be who we hoped they would be. It's not going to happen. Give that up and you will be happier. One thing we know from research is if you want an immediate lift in mood, and if you're feeling depressed or if you're unhappy, there's one quick way to get happier. Reduce your expectations. So we know that from the research, that oftentimes our expectations cause us so much unhappiness. So reduce your expectations. And I tell people, and I usually will tell them, hey, you know it's a lost cause. I just want you to know that. Now, not because I want it to be a lost cause, not because I want your family to be unloving, uncaring, or not narcissistic. They just aren't. You know, and I even have some people say, yeah, but they're my family. And I'm going, yes, I'm not telling you not to have a family. I'm not telling you not to be with your family. But, you know, are you ready to accept that they are not well? Can you accept that? Could you also maybe accept they never loved you? Now, what I mean by that is not, I can't judge anybody's love or parental love. That's, you know, but if you're not well, it's very hard to get healthy love from someone. And if you're a severe narcissist, it's very hard to be loved by them because their view of love is not what you and I think love is. And so we may need to accept maybe love wasn't there. Now they paid the bills, they gave you food, and that's fine. That's all parenting things we have to do. But can we allow them to be humans who are not well? And then once we've accepted this is who they are, now we decide, okay, this is who they are. Now, how do I and in what way do I want to interact with them? That's up to me. Now I have to make that choice. I can go no contact. I can have some contact. I can go to holidays. I can spend a short amount of time here. I can call on the phone here, and that would be okay. Now, they may not be happy with that. I don't know. But you have to make the choices of what you're happy with. And so so healing comes through dealing with illusions, and letting go of our hopes and dreams of the Norman Rockwell family portrait of everybody happy and thrilled to be together. Get rid of that. We do the grief work of letting go of what we didn't have. And then we also work on the feelings that we had as children and how we felt in this environment and deal with our hurt, sadness, anger, allowing those to be let go of, that we let go of those things, our guilt. And one of the things I work on is kind of a paradoxical approach. If somebody says, yeah, but I get triggered and I have a guilt episode. And I'm going, I understand you would have a guilt episode. If you grew up with narcissistic parents, you're going to have a guilt episode. Now the issue becomes, what would happen if I waved a magic wand and you didn't feel guilt anymore? What would be the downside of that experience? Not the upside. The upside is we'd all be happy and you're all fixed and we all walk away. But no. We hold on to those things from our childhood because since there's a fear of letting them go. And if I let go of my guilt, and I remember thinking about my own mother, and I remember a therapist asking me about this, and I went, well, if I did not feel guilt anymore, I might not have any relationship with her at all. Oh, that's what you're afraid of. And he said, well, then you better hold on to that guilt.
There it is.
And so our feelings will have secondary gain, payoffs, our
Yes.
anger, our reactivity, and we want to look at those payoffs so that we can actually let it go. Because if I could trust myself and go, well, I don't have to not have a relationship with her, I can have a different relationship with her. Now I might be able to let go of my guilt and not feel as guilty. Or she'll get mad if I don't feel guilty. Okay, well, if I could learn to tolerate her getting mad, maybe I could let go of the guilt. Okay, Mom, you're mad. Well, see you later. You know,
Right.
you're free to feel mad. You're free to be on your side of the tennis net. I'm free to be on my side of the tennis net. And we can play tennis back and forth if you'd like, but I'm not going to fix your side of the tennis net. If you're going to be mad at me, be mad at me, but I'm not going to feel guilty. And so now we can decide. And the other fear would be, well, she would reject me if I didn't feel guilty. Well, she probably needs me more than we know.
Right.
They don't want to lose their kids. Even narcissists want to keep their kids around. Well, hey, I'm able to let the relationship go. And isn't that what we've learned? That you only have what you're willing to let go of? And isn't that true in relationships? Do you have husbands and wives by controlling and squeezing hold of them? No, you have a healthy relationship by neither of you have to be there.
Right.
You choose to be there. That's just, I don't have to be there. I don't have to love my mother. I don't have to be in a relationship with my mother. And now I can choose what I want to do. So
thank you.
A long-winded answer for that.
Thank you. I'm going to read a couple of comments from the person who asked that question. So there's a few more things that I think it's a she, I think it's Grace, has to say. So losing other family member contact is hard because of no contact with narcs. I'm afraid of the other members having no relationship. I'm not sure if I totally understand that, but it seems like she's afraid of having.
I think I might understand that because I hear that complaint. Right. If I decide not to have a relationship with mom and dad, how is that going to affect siblings? How's that going to affect uncles and aunts? And, how are they all going to feel that I'm being mean or, will they be upset with me because, and I think that that's always a risk. And Brene Brown talks about having the courage to be yourself and the courage to be authentic. And it's always a risk because you don't have control of the outcome. And you're right, other family members may be unhappy with your choice. And in fact, many other family members were saying, will think unconsciously, so to speak, but actually it's systems feelings and systems thinking, which is, well, we're playing the game. Why can't you play the game? How do you get to get out of the game? We don't like that. You're upsetting mom and dad. And they don't have that much longer to live anyway. Why are you making them so miserable? And we can go on and on and on about, and if we can be ourselves and go, well, Sister Mary or Brother Bob or whatever, that I have a different relationship with mom and dad than you do. This is my choice. I don't choose to reject you. I'm not even really choosing to reject mom and dad. They just have constructed a relationship that I can't exist in. I'm not doing it to them. They have a certain construction, an architecture of the relationship that I can't do. And so I've made this choice. It's not because I hate anybody but I don't wish to harm my relationship with you. But if in fact the other family members are going to reject you, then I somewhat wonder how much of a relationship you are having with them anyway. And how deep a relationship is it? If you can't make your own choice and they have to reject you for it, well, then you're just hustling for acceptance. And I'm going to hustle for another Brene Brown term. I guess I've been doing some research with Brene, reading and working with on Brene Brown stuff. So that's why but she's got some good phrases. But hustling for self-esteem and hustling for self-worth, we hustle with our parents. Well, they're narcissistic, so I'll behave in this way and I'll let them yell at me and I'll just say it's okay. And same way with brothers and sisters. Well, I think I'm going to stop hustling. I'm going to just have self-esteem rather than hustle for it. And there is a cost to stopping the hustle, as we all know. When you are codependent, as I was so much, when you stop that codependence, people don't like that.
Right.
The good news is you turn into somebody else, and there are other people who do like what you're doing. So that's the good news.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. And Grace said, thank you. So true. There is a cost. Rose also said, focus on what you've lost was the best tip Jerry gave me. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to another question here. Thank you, everybody, and anyone else who's just now tuning in or tuned in late. If you have any questions for Jerry, you can just type them into the chat box to the right of this video, just to give you a reminder there. So I'll just keep looking over on that chat box as we keep going. So, okay, Jerry, here is one from our Facebook group. So this person has said, being betrayed is one of the hardest things to learn how to deal with. As a kid, I felt abandoned by my parents. They were never around, but the betrayal from all the men in my life, I think, is 100 times worse. I'm having a hard time with the most recent one. I've been having panic attacks, and I don't understand why it's so hard for people to just tell the truth. Yes, the truth hurts, but being lied to over and over is worse. When it rains, it pours, I guess. I am tired of drowning in the rain. It's getting to the point where I just can't swim anymore. What advice can you share, Jerry?
And did we have a name for her?
I actually don't have a name.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I just thought you had mentioned a name and I had missed it.
No.
That's fine. Well, I don't think you're going to like my answer very well, but let me first say it is very painful to be in the experience of being betrayed by a number of relationships or betrayed when you were a child. And, it's horrible. It's an awful experience. And so I want to tell you how much I know how difficult that is. And in fact, most all of us have been betrayed. I mean, most people can give you betrayal stories. We've all been betrayed, and it's never a good experience, and it's very hurtful, and it can take a while to heal. One of the things I find, if someone experiences serial betrayal, which you may have experienced, that serial betrayal, typically the chink in the armor is a betrayal of ourselves. We betray ourselves, and then we get into relationships where people betray us, much like abandonment and self-abandonment. People talk to me, they have a fear of abandonment. And do you know why they fear abandonment? Because they keep abandoning themselves, and they don't take care of themselves. They don't build their sense of self, and they don't see themselves in the system. They don't do that work or come to be awareness of their own wounds that that's important to heal. And so, like with betrayal, I always look at, and when people come, I can't trust anybody. They've messed me up, and I don't trust anybody now. And I'm going, the only problem is that when I hear you make that statement about I can't trust anybody now, do you know how I interpret that in my head? I can't trust myself. And usually there's a self-trust problem, just like a betrayal problem, and we betray ourselves. And here would be a betrayal. Someone I go out on a date with somebody and someone is verbally abusive with me and I just excuse it away. That's self-betrayal. And I don't notice that. Then I get in with a relationship with them and then find out they betray me. But how did I get into this in the first? Because I'm betraying myself in the first place. And that's often how we get into these problems. Now, I'm not blaming you for all of their betrayal choices. So I want you to know that. They've made bad choices. They were wrong. That was immature. And they are inappropriate and traumatizing for doing all those. But since we cannot fix all those guys, let's fix us, which is, how do I betray me? And how often do I do that? So that's how I might approach that.
Got it. Yes, and that rings into what you talked about during your first class, Jerry, all around the reducing self-abandonment and as hard as it might be to take a look at that, yes, it's like, wait a second, how am I betraying me? How am I abandoning myself in these moments where I see all of this abandonment happening to me, or what looks like happening to me, right? I'm abandoning myself in those, in that scenario.
And how many choices did I make in abandoning myself as I move through each of these relationships, or as I move through my relationship with my family of origin? And so I try to help people kind of stop that cycle. And then, believe it or not, they find themselves more attracted to someone who's not going to betray them, or
right.
There would be less likelihood. And so that's the good news. But you're right. When you're hurting, it's hard to look at you.
Yes.
Because you have been hurt. I mean, and I don't want to take away from that hurt. I know it. It hurts and it's crappy.
Yeah.
Those guys were wrong. But now's the chance. Since we can't change everybody in the world to make them reliable and trustworthy, then what do I need to do to look at me?
Right.
And again, we're talking about that loop again. How am I contributing to the betrayal? Because I may be betraying myself, which gets me in connected with this guy, which comes around and betrays me. And so there's that loop, and I want to see my part in it. Then I can heal. If I don't see my part in it, then I'm just going to sit in it, and just be miserable. And we don't want that.
Right. Awesome. Thank you, Jerry. Awesome. I love that. So a few more questions here from the live feed. So Stephanie is asking, as an empath, how do you deal with saying no to a narcissist when they will feel hurt? I don't like feeling that I am hurting others.
And that's a common problem too. And empaths tend to overfeel. Do you know you can work on overfeeling? And what I mean by that is, in a Bowen family systems approach, you try to learn about the feeling system and the emotional system. Or excuse me, the emotional system or feeling system and the cognitive thinking system. So thinking and feeling. And oftentimes those are too enmeshed. If we're immature or low on the self-differentiation scale, they're more enmeshed. We want to separate them out more, where we understand our feelings and understand our thoughts, and we can pull those systems apart. Now, this system that's the feeling system for an empath has become hypertrophic. If sometimes you'll have a growth on your skin and it's hypertrophic, meaning it's just more skin there than ought to be. It's just more skin growth than it should be. And so we either have to cut that off or whatever, or it can become cancerous. You start out with hypertrophy, too much skin or tissue, then it becomes cancerous. Well, we get rid of it before it. In other words, an overfunctioning can cause problems. Same way in our bodies. Well, an empath will overfunction in the feeling area. So with them, I want to work on, okay, our task is to feel less. Huh? How can I feel less? No different than how can you think less? And how can we work on, so when you go to the narcissist, let's say, and she was talking about a narcissist, she's going to say something, and then they're going to feel hurt, and then she's going to feel hurt. And in those situations, I'd say, let's work through that, and let's talk about what you're going to do. And what I want you to do is absolutely not be aware of any of your feelings when you interact with them. I want you to stifle those feelings. I do not want you to feel. I want you only to think. Well, that's a new thought, because aren't coaches and therapists and everybody saying you need to feel, 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 feel? Well, when it's healthy, but not when it's not. You know, just like codependents. Codependents tend to feel too much. No, let's learn to feel less, so that we can use our head and go, I want you to stay in your head. Stay out of your feelings. They will betray you. Just like with systems feelings, I want you to ignore and to stifle those systems feelings. I want you to resist them and stay in your head when you're having this discussion with the narcissist. And we can do some practice about not feeling. And then they start going, oh, you mean I can even do that? Because I thought I was just an empath and I will always overfeel. Well, no, you don't have to always. I'm not saying you don't have a propensity to overfeel. I understand that. But then you have to work more on underfeeling, because those feelings are going to betray you, and the narcissist is going to use your mirroring of their hurt feelings. Well, I feel hurt, then you feel hurt, and now I've got you.
Right.
Because you're mirroring my feelings. Hey, I want somebody to come up to me and say, Jerry, you're the worst person in the world. And instead of me mirroring back a reactive feeling, I want to be neutral and go, really? That's confusing. I'm not even sure how you would evaluate that. To know that I'm the worst person in the world. You've spent a lot of time with a lot of people. And because I want to think rather than feel in that situation. If I feel, then I'm going to end up going, oh, why do you think that? Why are you saying that? That's so painful. Why would you say that about me? I'm so hurt. My low self-esteem has been triggered. Da, 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 da. Well, now I'm overfeeling, and now we have a mess. Now we're not going to go anywhere. It's only, well, we're going to go somewhere, but it won't be a good place. And so learning to feel less and think more in order to path.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate that. So we have a couple more questions live. So Michelle is asking, so why is it that so many counselors tell people to bail instead of working on the family relationship? What if the other family member is willing to change? They just didn't know there was a problem. This is obviously a generalized question of all counselors.
And it happens every day. It happens all the time, because the counselor has bailed, and they can only take you as far as they have gone. So the counselor, the coach, the therapist can only take you where they've gone in terms of self-differentiation. And so in their own life, they may going, I should bail, or I wish I could bail, so let me tell you to bail. And I've never been able to work through my own family issues, so I don't know how to tell you to work through your own family issues, because I haven't done it. So just leave. Now, does that mean no contact is inappropriate? No, we might have to go no contact in an appropriate way. But no contact is a mature decision about a relationship or a family relationship. An emotional cutoff is an immature response to a family of origin relationship. And so they're handing you an immature response. Whereas maybe the answer is to go no contact, but I wouldn't go through the same process that counselor would be going through to come to that. They're just saying, well, just bail, just let him go. Who cares? Well, they may be partially right. I mean, they're trying to say, don't make them be so important. I agree. But is it possible to make them less important while staying in contact with them? Is that possible? And I believe it is. Not all relationships are possible, but I like to decide, does this problem require more self-differentiation, or does this problem require more no contact? Which is it? And I think many counselors can get it wrong because of their own choices. If most therapists, I'd say many therapists have not done their own work and haven't done their own family of origin work. And I've trained a bunch of therapists and worked with therapists for years, for 40 years. Most of them, not most, many of them don't have a clue, or have only come, I mean, they just got what they got out of a book. There's some that haven't even been in therapy for themselves. How are you gonna, I remember spending 6.5 years in group therapy, and I wasn't the therapist or the leader. I was there, the client. I got to do my own work, that, and I think that's going to help other people. If it has the therapist sat on the other side of the room, and so yeah, they will say they'll take an easy route out, and we'll take the easy way, or just bail, or they'll say, well, you just go tell them what for, just go read them the right act, or just bail. Both of those are reactive responses. Why don't we teach people how to be non-reactive and be adult in this situation? Which could mean no contact, but it also could mean maybe I could be myself while staying connected to this family in some way.
Right.
Sounds like a fairly positive outcome, I would think.
Right. Those are two totally different contexts. To be, maybe the result is the same, as in you're not having contact with someone if that's what seems to be the most healthy thing for you or your family or whatever, but it's
not a reactive, immature, emotional response.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what hurts us. Adult responses don't hurt us. Immature, emotional, reactive responses hurt us emotionally. Because you know what happens if you cut off from somebody? Then you're never cut off.
Say that again.
If you cut off from someone, I didn't say no contact, I said cut off. If you immaturely, emotionally cut off from somebody, you solidify and cement the negative relationship in you from here on out. That's the problem with cutoff. You've now just memorialized it. You've now just made a statue to it.
Right.
I don't want to do that. I want to, if you cut off from your family, then your family will always be a problem within you. Now, you can go no contact, but do the work of not cutting off. Then do the no contact or whatever you need to do, or make the relationship better. But emotional cutoffs solidify the dysfunctional relationships inside you. I realize you're not talking to them anymore. I got that. But that doesn't mean it's still not at work in you.
Right.
It's still at work in you. It's just you're not talking to them anymore.
Right. Could still be brewing inside you. Right.
It will be brewing inside you.
Yeah.
And I just prefer and try to tell people, don't let that happen. Don't do that. Be healthier, be clear, get the burden lifted from you. Do the adult thing. You're going to be happier in the long run, because if you really want to get your family out of you, cutoff is not the way to do it. Let's get the family out of you, but not through cutoff.
Yeah.
But no one's telling them that. That's not what they hear in many videos and many books that they read, and they're not hearing that kind of message so much, which is why I think my message is kind of picked up a little steam or popularity, because they're not hearing that in the counselor's office, and they're not hearing that, sadly.
Yeah, it's kind of like you said something near the beginning of this call about like divorce not being the answer to something, and I can't remember what it was, but it was something along the same kind of lines, right? That could be like a cutoff. Not saying that sometimes you don't get a divorce, absolutely.
Exactly.
And
But divorce can be a cutoff too.
yeah,
It's just a legalized cutoff. And then, well, what happens? You get it, you're emotionally reactive. I'm getting out of this marriage. I'm going to cut off. I'm getting a divorce. We go through the legal process. There, I'm divorced. Okay, now because of your cutoff, you will forever be emotionally married to that person. And you'll take that into the next relationship. Because even though you've divorced, your cutoff solidifies you with them. You know, that's the problem. And I wish it didn't work that way, but that's how relationships work. And so, yeah, you got a divorce, but now you'll have to fix that in your new relationship.
right.
And also, whatever you don't resolve in terms of issues becomes your kids' responsibility to resolve.
And there's a whole other piece of the pie.
There's a whole other video on that one.
Right. Awesome. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate that. So here's another live question from Sarah. She's asking how best to deal with abuse by proxy. And I actually don't know what that means. Could you, first of all, share what that means and then help Sarah with her question?
I think I can. Abuse by proxy is like you might get abused from a flying monkey. Somebody, if someone, let's say dad is unhappy with you, he's a narcissist, and then he talks to his uncle about, or his brother about you, so your uncle calls you and is criticizing you and condemning you for how you're treating your dad, you know, and that I'm going to stop supporting you financially because you're, you know, now I kind of have abuse by proxy. You know, it comes through another way or another form. And there's lots of, it's abuse by triangulation is another way of saying it. And it can be more complicated than that, whereby I've had a friend who had a narcissistic relationship. She was very upset and pounding him, which affected something he and I were working on. And so I got affected by that narcissistic abuse, even though I wasn't in a relationship with her. I didn't do anything, you know, I didn't even virtually hardly know her at all, but it still affected me indirectly through him. So narcissism and narcissistic abuse can really send electric shocks throughout the system to affect many people. Now, her question was, what do you...
Just how to best deal with abuse by proxy.
Okay, right. Well, and I don't, you know, I don't think there's any magic answer to make it, to have them stop it, because a narcissist is going to do what a narcissist does. And you may get caught up in that. What I have found is, how can I not be reactive, not engage the narcissist, and make mature adult decisions at this point, grieve the loss of the impact, because it impacted us, my friend and I mean, it really messed with us. I have to grieve the loss of that. And I was thinking, well, I'll just go around and, you know, talk with her or confront her. Had I done that, it would have only made it worse. It would have only been more problematic. And I wanted to get past it and through it. So you put your head down, you know, calm down, not be reactive, protect yourself any way you can. I mean, any appropriate ways to protect you. where there's no, if you want to communicate. The thing is, if somebody's doing abuse by proxy, there's just usually not any reason to talk to the narcissist, because they don't care. I mean, they just don't even care. So why do I want to go get involved with somebody who doesn't care and doesn't care that I'm being impacted too? So it seems like a waste of time. So again, I chalk it up as life has narcissists in it. That's just what happens. This happens to be the situation. I'm going to move away from that. I'm going to make better choices in the future. How do I need to protect myself so I'm not as exposed in the future, so I don't abandon myself, I don't betray myself? How do I need to take care of myself so that maybe I can reduce that in the future? And that's not a magical answer, but maybe a practical one. It is hard when you get abused by proxy indirectly, and that certainly can happen.
Awesome, thank you, Jerry. Appreciate that answer. We have, I think it's a comment. I'm going to read Melanie's comment over here. So these videos help us so much. Thank you for taking the time. It helps tremendously. I've realized that we as individuals are the only ones who can change negatives about ourselves, and we get so hurt over people who can't and simply don't want to change. They can't even admit they've hurt. Life is so short and beautiful, and if someone loves you, they will prove it and do any work to fix a relationship. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Melanie.
Absolutely.
And Sarah said, thank you for your answer to your question about the abuse by proxy. So we got that. Wonderful. So Jerry, we have a few minutes left. So I want to make sure that anyone else who has live questions, please type those in. But we do need to wrap up soon. So are there any last insights you want to leave people with? Anything? We've gone through lots of different topics here, but what do you say?
Covered a wide range of things, and I hope it was helpful to talk through some of those things. I think in talking about abandonment and reducing self-abandonment, the fear of abandonment begins with us. And what that means is, how are we abandoning ourselves? Because we end up scaring ourselves, because I fear others are going to abandon me, but actually I'm probably not aware of how much I abandon me, and I'm actually afraid of myself. So a fear of abandonment starts with us, and you may want to begin to heal that and be more reliable, reparent yourself better, be a better friend to you, be a better lover and person who loves yourself, not selfishly, but in self-care and in self-love. Don't run away from yourself. Don't guilt yourself. Don't shame yourself. All of those are self-abandoning things, which will only increase your fear of abandonment. And, we often leave ourselves in the dust and then wonder why everybody leaves us in the dust.
Right.
Well, because we leave ourselves in the dust, and that's why everybody. So whenever you have people doing things to you, take a look and see how you're doing it to yourself in your own ways. That will be some insight, I think, for you. And the self-abandonment, of course, is the old minus plus is self-abandonment. Rather than plus plus, you're okay, I'm okay. Plus plus, plus plus minus is the narcissist. And then the one who's been abused is the minus plus, that I'm the negative. I'm not okay, you're okay. And so what we want to do is learn to reduce the minus plus and work towards a plus plus. And what I like to do with a narcissist is work towards a plus null. In other words, I'm not going to give them space in my mind, my heart, and in my life. So it's plus null, a set of null, zero. Not a plus or a minus, but a zero, a nothing. And that's, I think there's a place for that too.
Awesome. So. Thank you. I love that. That's a great way to, and I totally relate to that, right? The mindset of the minus plus, and how many people can see themselves maybe in that, or what you were talking about with narcissistic relationships and stuff too. Absolutely. I've never really thought about it in that way. Gives a nice kind of visual representation to that and the dynamic. So
self-abandonment, right?
Yep. Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. All right. Well, we are going to wrap up here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this, for asking your questions, for emailing us, for posting in Facebook and all of that. And, we couldn't be doing this without you. And we're so excited to always be giving you this material and talking with fabulous people like Jerry. And Jerry, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know you're a busy guy.
You're so very welcome, Andy. And I appreciate getting to talk with you. You're enjoyable to talk to, and I appreciate that. Great interviewer. I like the work you guys are doing to it, Avaiya, and I do think it is a privilege to get to talk today and have this interview. Appreciate it.
Well, right back at you.
And I hope people will go to my website and the YouTube channel.
So Jerry, we will put, so for the replay for this video, I know people are watching live right now, but for the replay, we will have a link to your YouTube channel, a link to your website, also to the books that you mentioned, so people can check those out. Anything else I'm missing?
That should do it.
Okay, awesome.
It's great.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Jerry. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and for working on yourselves and not abandoning yourself by being here today. So I love it. And we will see you again next time. Here is once again to our journey to breaking free from abandonment and betrayal. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Have a great day.